It's not a crime against humanity to be born broke, to be born in poverty, but it is a crime against humanity to stay broke. Hey guys, Randy back with another episode, which I think is a fascinating topic, and here on the Power Prosperity Podcast, and I have clicked on the laptop for you guys who want to watch on YouTube. So let me give a little quick overview of this topic, which is the 5 biggest reasons people stay broke. And understand, it's not about why you're broke, it's why you stay broke. Because I don't want anyone to think I'm doing this episode to demean broke people or judge them, but because I believe people remain in poverty because of ignorance. It has nothing to do with intelligence, right? There are highly intelligent people who are wealthy. There are highly intelligent people who are broke. It is not about IQ as it is about just ignorance, that there's a lot of ignorance in the field of money, finance, and building wealth. So the purpose of this episode is really to dispel the ignorance, and for if you are one of the people who's struggling with being broke, to allow you to catch where you might be tripping yourself up. So I got 5 reasons. Let's jump into them. Number 1, you don't understand how the money system works. Meaning you haven't developed financial literacy. You don't know how annuities work, the benefits of investing in real estate, how to run a stock portfolio or bonds or those kind of things. That's financial literacy. I certainly didn't have it for the first 40 years of my life. Guy was expelled from high school, so I certainly didn't have any finance training. I come from a really poor family, so I didn't hang around or know wealthy people in the early decades of my life. I was completely ignorant of finance, and I had to learn how to become financially literate. So that could be one of the reasons that cause it. Another reason is you've been victimized by predatory lenders, whether bank or investment advisors, or particularly I'm thinking of the credit card companies. They're just, man, the usury, the interest rates they're charging. And I think of right now, and I'm recording this in July of 2023. And so we're a year and a half, 2 years out of the pandemic. But let me tell you what happened in the pandemic. A whole bunch of people got behind on their payments, and they missed a credit card payment by 3 days or 10 days, or they couldn't make it and they had to ask for relief. And the credit card company said, oh, sure, of course, we're here to help you. We know our customers are facing difficult times. You can skip your next 3 payments or whatever. And then they took your interest rate from 18% or 19% or 20%, and they raised it to 30%. And it's exploitation. And so, by the way, here's a little bonus lesson. After this show, go and look at every single credit card statement you got and see what the interest rates you're paying. And you might be shocked to find that all of your cards, however many you have, are at 29, 30%, 27.89, whatever. Call the number on each one and just say, hey, I'd like to talk to, an agent. I had some financial trouble in the past, or when COVID happened, or I lost my job, or whenever you got behind. And I see that they've raised my interest rate very high. And I want to know, can I get that reduced? 50% of them will probably reduce it on the spot, because it's a game, it's a system. They're playing you. And they don't want to play the people who know how they're being gamed, because then they cancel their cards. But these credit card companies, I mean, they're just, for the most part, they're evil. They're just evil. They found a need in the market and they've exploited it very unethically, is my prosperity conscious belief. I get, you have a service, other people want it, the demand goes up, you raise your prices. That's free enterprise, that's capitalism. I'm all for it. But at some point you cross the line and you're actually hurting people for profits that you don't have to get. And that's what I feel has happened in the credit card market today. But I was just flying back from Hawaii last week. And if you remember, I did a podcast. No, it wasn't a podcast. It was my blog on randygage.com. So I wrote about the power of the pause, I think was the title of it, and how you have to get away sometimes and treat yourself and take a break. So I was writing that and I'm like, I got to take my own advice. So I stopped the blog. I went online and said, okay, let me look at my frequent flyer miles and whatever. I need to get away. So I had a bunch of miles in an airline and I said, let me go to Hawaii. And I cashed in some miles. So I'm flying back from that trip. And as if you haven't ridden a flight in the last 3 years, you should know airlines don't make their money on flights anymore. They make their money on credit card programs. They get paid tens of millions of dollars by credit card companies for affiliating their card with that airline. So you get points or miles or whatever. They do this with the hotels, with the airlines, everything. So I used a bunch of my miles, and they were get on as they do now, and they're giving commissions to the flight attendants. So they're really pushing. Every major airline I know is really pushing their credit card on every single flight. And they have these applications and you can sign up in the air on your phone or you take the app home. And they were pushing this new card with 70,000 bonus miles. And I'm like, you know what? I just burned a bunch of miles. I'm going to get this card and I'm going to get 70,000 of those miles back. Because that's like it's probably one domestic first class ticket I think you could get with 70,000 miles. And so I brought the brochure. I brought it home. I'm one of those old fashioned people. I don't want to do it on my phone. I wanted to laptop it. So I type in. So I go to the page and it's, what's your name, address, age, blah, 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 blah. So I just click the box. And of course, all that comes up because it's on file with Google or Microsoft or somebody. So, it auto fills in the form, as happens today from all the marketers who have all of your data and know everything about you. And because we're lazy and we care more about getting things done quick than our privacy, we do that. So I click on it. So I put it in. It takes me literally 80 seconds from start to finish. And the screen pops up and it says, congratulations, we've approved you. You have a $30,000 line of credit. I'm like, are you kidding me? No wonder people get into trouble with credit card debt. These people know me for 8 seconds and now they're giving me a $30,000 line of credit. But of course, the trick is you have to use the card within 60 days or 30, whatever the number is, to get those miles, because they don't want you to get their card, get the miles, and then cut up the card. They need you to use the card. They need you to go into debt so they can start hawking you for those horrible interest rates. So, and then most people, what happens? They get a credit card and they're like, wow, they gave me 10,000 credit or 20,000 credit. Let's go out to dinner tonight. And it's just easy, cheap, what looks like cheap credit, which is really horrible credit. So develop literacy. And I think the other thing that happens when I say people don't know how the money system works is they don't understand the power of leverage. And that's going to be the next thing we talk about. But before we leave number one, let me give you a resource. So if you're watching on YouTube, right on this channel, which is Prosperity TV. So if you're listening on the podcast, you have to go to YouTube, Prosperity TV, and then click playlists. And I have an entire playlist of making money and creating wealth. So go there and you will find show after show after show of instruction on how the money system works and how to protect yourself and take advantage of the things that will allow you to build wealth. All right, second biggest reason people stay broke, I already alluded to it, you're not unleashing the power of leverage. It's very simple, guys. Broke people trade hours for money. Wealthy people have their money work for them. Period. End of story. Go back, think of like Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill. Take the wealthiest people in that age, Carnegie, Ford, Firestone, and then fast forward to today, the wealthiest people in our age, Jeff Bezos, Oprah, J.K. Rowling. What do they all have in common? They know how to use the power of leverage. So again, I'll give you a resource if you're not familiar with this. The role of leverage in creating wealth, and that is on the podcast, and it's also on the YouTube channel. So either one, just search for the role of leverage in creating wealth. Number 3 is the Dicey One. You've traded prosperity for a victim payoff. Here's what happens. If you grow up in a crazy, dysfunctional point of origin, like I did, have a lot of emotional issues, unmet childhood needs, you live a very dysfunctional life. You view everything in the world through a very dysfunctional lens, and you desperately need to get your emotional needs met. And so you end up becoming a victim. You don't do this consciously. It's a subconscious thing. You self-sabotage yourself. You manifest victim situations. You attract people or circumstances that take advantage or exploit you because it brings you sympathy or because it brings you attention. I look at my early years and I was just manifesting trauma after drama after trauma after drama. And it was because I was so emotionally crippled that I couldn't allow anyone to love me. I couldn't allow anyone to care for me because I didn't love myself. I didn't take care of myself. And so when you don't love yourself, you won't let anyone else love you. So I kept going in all these, negative dysfunctional relationship, one after the other after the other. But the one constant was I would have all of these health challenges, and because they got me attention. And that was the closest thing I could do to love, because I couldn't accept love. So there is an emotional payoff that happens. If you're still talking about your ex-spouse, that you got divorced 5 years ago, 15 years ago, hey, you're getting an emotional payoff of that. I hate to say this because, it makes people hate me. But somebody's got to tell you the truth about this stuff, right? This is the other thing I wrote in a blog and people wanted to cancel me. And I said, there is a statute of limitations on what your parents did to you as a child. No matter how horrific it was, if they sold you into slavery, into sex trafficking, if they were abusive, they were alcoholics, they were drug addicts, they deserted you, whatever they did, as horrific as it is, there's a statute of limitations, because at some point you got to say, okay, I was born into one of the most horrific, terrible, dysfunctional, negative, toxic families of origin in the course of human history. But the longer I dwell on that and seek to be a victim of that, the longer it's going to keep me from moving away from it. You heard me say it 15 million times. You can be a victim or you can be a victor. but you can't be both. So that's a case of when you're hanging on to that, now you're 25 or 35 or 45 or worse, older, and you're still hanging on to the childhood abuse or desertion or whatever the case. You got to let that go. You got to forgive them. They did the best they could with what they have, and you got to move on and just go forward. Because what we do when we slide into victimhood is we try to manifest a more heroic hero's journey story. So what happens is it starts out as you're talking about how you were so victimized as a child, and then you were so victimized by your first wife, and then you were so victimized by your second wife, and then you were so victimized by the president and the economy and the recession and the depression, and you just become a professional victim. And I know because I did this for 30 some years. So I'm, this isn't some thing I read in a textbook. I'm telling you, real world, this is how it works when you come from those kind of things. There is this really emotional payoff we get from being victimized. And at some point you have to realize, okay, I can impress all of my ignorant, broke friends by regaling them with story after story of my cheap boss who won't give me a raise, and those jerks at the power company who turned off my electricity, and my mean, evil landlord who's trying to evict me because I haven't paid the rent, and the horrible government that wants me to pay my student loan debt, and on and on and on. You're going to make a choice. Okay, so all my friends say, oh, yes, that's so terrible. Man, I know how you feel. I feel so bad for you. You can do that and keep getting that emotional payoff. You could say, I'd rather just be healthy, happy, and wealthy. So choose wisely. Resource here is either on the podcast or the YouTube channel. Both of them is an episode called How to End Self-Sabotage. Okay, numero cuatro. You bought a false story. You bought, I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. I don't have a degree. You have to know the right people. You need money to make money. These are all lies. These are all bad premises. These are all wallowing in victimhood excuses. And you have to let them go. They no longer serve you. You have to decide, I deserve to be rich. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be healthy. And the resource here, I'm going to give you a PhD program on how to blow up those limiting beliefs. And it's my last book called Radical Rebirth. Get that book. And it really is. It's like a PhD program of how you could fall into limiting beliefs in every area of your life. Parenthood, jobs, money, religion, everything. So that would be the resource there. And then finally, number 5 is you've been brainwashed to believe poverty is a virtue. This is one of the most significant, pervasive and evil mind viruses in the world right now. There are literally billions of people affected with this mind virus, where they believe there's something spiritual, virtuous, noble, even romantic to be poor. And this almost always comes from it's passed on from your family of origin. If you had parents or grandparents who were raised in the Great Depression, it just generation after generation, there's so many limiting negative beliefs that get passed along. And they comes in 4 forms, really, that you get this programming. One is organized religion. They teach you it's spiritual to be poor. 2 is the education system. It's run and the courses are taught by a bunch of well-meaning teachers and professors who are propagating these negative mind viruses, these false mind viruses, that it's virtuous to be poor, and they don't even know it. They're not doing it consciously. It's all done on a subconscious level. Governments need you to be broke. Governments need you to need them, because that's how they retain their power. And I'm not just talking about communism and socialism. Pick any democracy and some of these other models in the world, they're still tainted with this bad premise philosophy that being broke or poor is somehow inherently virtuous. And then, of course, the data sphere, the books, movies, TV shows, social media accounts, particularly Twitter, is very left leaning, very extreme left leaning. So there's a lot of socialistic and even communistic, and I'm putting communism in the leftist side, just because it's that idea of, oh, the greater good, and we're going to penalize the overachievers, and we're going to distribute it with the underachievers because we want equality for everyone. I want equality for everyone, but you can't give equity to everyone. There has to be a free enterprise system where there is a meritocracy. And once people lose their ignorance and discover how they could become wealthy, then they can do so by adding value and solving problems and envisioning superior possibilities. The other one where all the, I feel like there's a lot of negativity is like Instagram. There's so much of this, well, here's my office for the day, because there's the picture from the balcony, because they're at the dental assistant convention in San Diego, and they got a water view room, and here's my new car, and here's our new home, and here's us on vacation in the Turks and Caicos. And there's so much posturing and virtue signaling that's very bad for your psyche. It's very bad for your self-esteem. It makes you develop worthiness issues. So that's a whole different game in itself. So that whole social media issue is a deal. By the way, I'm off of all social media pretty much. I check Twitter now and then, but the Threads just came out. So I'm actually on that. If you want to follow me, Randy_Gage on Threads. I'm testing it. It just came out. So far, I'm loving it. Good positivity. Finding some cool people to follow with some nice messages. So if you're on social, look for me there. And then the resource here is the same as number 4, my Radical Resource book. I'm sorry, Radical Rebirth book, because that's all about this brainwashing that happens. So let's put this all together. Here's what I would leave you with. Being broke is ... a crime against humanity, an insult to the force that created you, a repudiation of your potential. All 3 of those things, but never because you were born that way or you faced some horrific temporary failure, some failure that caused a temporary setback. Those things are only true if you stay broke, if you stay in poverty. Please step into your greatness, accept your birthright to be healthy, happy, and prosperous. YouTubers, hit me up in the comments. Audio people, please rate, share, subscribe. Have an amazing week. Talk to you soon. Peace.